Hi everyone, and welcome to the Carlos Fandango YouTube channel again. You may remember the other day I made a video about the release of version 1.7 of the CHIA blockchain software, and whilst we were going through that we noticed that there was a hyperlink here to a proposed chip to do with the plot filter change. Now this seems to be very important, so what I've done is I've gone through that actual document, tried to make sense of it. It took several passes, and I've come up with a summary of the changes and how it will affect us CHIA farmers, and hopefully that'll be of use to you, and it'll save you having to trawl through this massive document like I did, trying to understand everything in it, and go through all the comments from various miners and the questions back to the CHIA development team. So I've put together a small presentation that just sort of details the main points really, just to sort of give an indication as to what this is all about. So let's go through that. So it's all to do with a change to the plot filter, and the reasons for it, they say, are to reduce or discourage plot grinding, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. If you ask me, it's more about alignment with the United Nations sustainability goals and net zero. It's more about that. And you'll see why when you look at some of the timescales for what they're proposing. It seems to align very much with the agenda put out by the United Nations. So in a nutshell, the plot filter is basically a constant currently set to 512 in the CHIA blockchain software, and the purpose of it is to reduce disk input output from your system. So at the moment they're saying that your disks on your system, in your CHIA ecosystem, however that might be put together, there's an idle time of about 99.7%, so it reduces the need for disk access. What it currently does, or could do, is make GPU plot grinding cost effective, and I'll go into GPU plot grinding a bit more in a second. And plot grinding basically moves away from CHIA's environmentally friendly preference of proof of space and time and leans more towards a proof of work consensus. So it goes against what they stand for, really, or what they're trying to achieve. Chip 12, this document, is to seek agreement to introduce changes to this constant value, so that every 2 years it reduces. So in the first 2 years we'll go down to 256, then 2 years after that reduced to 128, and 64 and 32 finally, 32 being reached around 2030. And there you can see that aligns very much with the United Nations sustainability goals of Agenda 2030. So this looks like why they want to put this in place now. They want to discriminate against those farmers that are being showing a level of ingenuity and looking for different ways to mine and farm CHIA, using GPUs and other types of approaches, shall we say. So this Chip 12 document is asking for, is putting forward the proposal to merge two commits from the plot filter branch in their source control into the main branch. Okay, so what is plot grinding? Let's have a look. So this is a method used by farmers to temporarily create a plot after receiving a challenge, and I say temporarily because they are able currently or in the future to delete the plot after the new block has been introduced into the blockchain, so it does away with the need to persist it. It also means that of the 7 tables that are created within those 4 phases of CHIA plotting that you know very well, in theory they could get away with only producing the first phase, and this we know can be done very quickly nowadays. So that can be done, basically a proof lookup completed in around 28 seconds. So it does away with the need to persist that plot altogether. They can create it in memory on a RAM disk, whatever, only completing phase 1, and with some very clever approaches to just producing the ID of the plot, do away with having to persist it altogether. So this does away with the proof of space and time, does away with the need for hard disks or large arrays of hard disks, and it means that they can cheat the system somewhat. The CHIA development team are very clear in that they say that this is not seen to be an attack, but it is not the intended way to use CHIA's network, and that's why they want to try and stamp it out. So why this can be done is because there are miners or whatever that have significant amounts of GPUs already owned, so they only have to pay for the operational expenditures of electricity only. So CHIA wants to make it not profitable to do that, wants to get away from the spoofing capacity that they're currently doing. Okay, what is a plot filter? Just a little bit of background into this in case you're not familiar. It's designed to make CHIA harvesting possible, providing a safe buffer and dealing with the overhead of network latency. So it allows harvesters to cope with the disk input-output requirements, regardless of how the blockchain is growing. So it means with a minimum spec hardware, you can perform the harvesting task, basically. It protects genuine farmers from that. So at the current constant value of 512, a harvester only needs to perform a check on 1 out of every 512 plots per signage point, which is the broadcast of a new proof, and this takes on average 9.375 seconds. So this is reducing the input-output disk access requirements of your system by keeping that constant at 512. Right, so how does this affect me as a CHIA farmer if this chip was to go forward and be put into the main branch? Well, CHIA does say that a hard fork will be required on CHIA's network due to the broadening of the plot filter rules. Every 2 years you will see your disk input-output increase on your CHIA systems. It will also increase your GPU CPU cycles on the harvester machinery used for your plot decompression. So it's going to, every 2 years, put a little bit more strain on our systems. They do say you're already getting a over 97% idle time on your disk access input-output, and there's going to be a minimal amount of increase on that, but they don't give you any figures. So I just want to read a couple of quotes from the documentation that they put out. So the first is, when the plot filter reaches its final level proposed in this chip of 32 in the year 2030, farmers will be able to keep up with the network using minimal spec hardware. But they don't mention what that minimal spec hardware is, but fortunately some farmers asked that question in the actual chip blog itself, and I'll put a link to that in the description so that you can go and look at that in more detail yourself. But they do mention that a Raspberry Pi 5 might be the minimal spec hardware in order to continue harvesting once this plot filter change goes into place, but they say it will definitely not be a workstation. So this raised a question for me. I was thinking of investing in the Evergreen miners that you see are available in the US at the moment. They're quite a tidy and environmentally friendly option, come with pre-plotted drives, a little bit on the pricey side, not available in the UK yet, but I was thinking about those because they are a very economical solution to CHIA harvesting. So I have emailed Evergreen separately to ask them what the current hardware is in the base hub unit that they supply in their Evergreen mining solutions. If it is a Raspberry Pi 4, what are their plans to produce a further version of the hub that can just be slotted in with a Raspberry Pi 5 or equivalent system in it. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back, and I'll let you know when I have that response from them, and we'll see what they say. The second quote is, "The effect will be a temporary doubling in the speed of the network, which could cause a temporary outage of some nodes." So they're saying basically with each decrement of the plot filter, there will be a temporary doubling of speed on their network, and they don't know how they're going to handle that yet, and there may be some outage associated with that. Okay, what other options were considered before they decided on the plot filter decrease? There were two others which they rejected. The first was they were going to increase the K size. So at the moment I think 97% of the plots on the CHIA NetSpace are K32s. I know 100% of mine are. They were going to increase the K size by 1 every 2 to 3 years as a minimum, and you would have to increase your plots to that K size in enabling you to be eligible to submit a proof. They rejected this because this would require replotting of 97% of the network every 2 to 3 years. It would need increased hardware requirements, and there would be an increased environmental impact. Obviously frowned upon by those promoting the United Nations net zero climate control agenda. So it went against what they're trying to achieve and what the United Nations are trying to achieve, obviously. Option 2 was to change the proof of space format in its entirety, a new format to discourage GPU plotting with more tables per plot or proofs required in pairs. This was rejected also because it's highly disruptive with a 100% replot of net space requirement. Not sufficiently impactful and not currently possible, they said. So that is it. That's the gist of it. Let me just come out of that and go back to the document. So that's as simple as I could put it, really. No idea when it will be put into place yet. There's conversations still ongoing on the blog associated with this chip. You can see farmers still asking questions. They haven't made a decision as to when it's going to occur, but I would assume in order to keep on track for that 2030 agenda, they're going to have to implement it pretty soon. So be aware, keep your ears to the ground, keep an eye on this documentation, because it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen very quickly, and as I said, there are going to be some impacts as I've detailed there. So I hope that's been useful for you. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. As I say, we'll have to wait and see. I will keep an ear out and let you know if I hear anything further, and I will let you know when I hear back from Evergreen as well. So please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if it was useful to you. Subscribe if you can. It helps the channel to grow, and that's what I want to do. But I will see you next time.